All right, so today we're diving into this crazy world of cyber attacks.
Hmm.
It feels like we're in a full-blown digital arms race,
Mm.
and the attackers are getting more and more sophisticated.
Yeah, no kidding. We're seeing this thing called multi-domain attacks. Basically, think of it like this. Instead of just trying to hack your front door, they're probing your entire digital world, looking for any crack in your defenses.
It's scary stuff. Like, they're not just after your computer anymore. They're going after every device, every account, anything connected to you.
Right, and they're doing it at an alarming rate. Like, did you know password attacks alone have jumped from like 567 to 7,000 per second? It's insane.
Seriously, that's just mind-blowing. And it's not just some random hackers in their basement anymore. We're talking organized crime, nation-states, the big leagues.
Exactly. And Microsoft's Vasu Jakal, she's the head of security over there, she was saying that this new landscape requires a whole new approach to security, right?
Yeah.
We need to be proactive and unified.
Oh yeah, at Ignite this year. You could tell it was a major theme. They were talking about how everyone's a potential target in this environment. Like, no one is immune to this stuff.
Yeah, and that brings us to graph databases. This is the tech everyone's talking about, like the secret weapon in this cyber arms race.
Yeah, it feels like everyone at Ignite was buzzing about graph databases. Like it was the thing.
So it's interesting, right? Because you've got all these different pieces of your digital life, your laptop, your phone, smart devices, even social media. And what graph databases can do is like map out all those connections, show you how everything relates to each other.
Oh, I see. So it's like having this map of your digital world showing all the potential roads an attacker could take.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so powerful. It doesn't just show you individual data points, it reveals the relationships between them, those hidden connections.
Ah, so that's how they can maybe even predict where an attack might happen next, like
Yeah.
based on past patterns and stuff, right?
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting with Microsoft and their big announcement at Ignite. They've built this platform called MSEM, the Security Exposure Management Platform. And guess what? It's entirely based on graph database technology.
Yeah, MSEM was a huge deal at Ignite. It seems like they're betting big on this being like a generational shift in security.
And they're not alone. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, they're basically saying that graph databases and AI are the keys to winning this arms race. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. So we keep talking about these connections, right? The ones attackers exploit. But it's not just about the tech itself, it's about how you use it.
Okay, yeah, give me some examples then. How are people actually using these graph databases to fight back?
Well, one of the scariest things out there, right? Multi-domain attacks.
Oh, yeah.
This is where they're not just hitting one system, they're hitting you everywhere, exploiting all those little weaknesses across your entire setup.
It's like fighting a hydra or something. You cut off one head and two more pop up. So how do graph databases even help with that?
Well, that's where the connections part comes in. Let's say an attacker, right, gets into some low-level account, like maybe an intern's email or something.
Okay.
Now, a normal security system might just see that and be like, whatever, minor incident. But with the graph database, boom, you see instantly how that account's connected to other stuff, like what data it can reach, how an attacker could use it to, like, hop around.
So it's like seeing the ripple effect of that breach. You're not just looking at the point of entry, you're seeing the whole web of consequences.
Exactly, and that lets you respond way faster, right? Isolate systems, block access, and you prevent that spread before it gets really bad.
That's pretty wild. It's like having a security camera that can not only see the intruder, but like trace their steps and maybe even predict where they're going next, kind of like Minority Report style, but for hackers.
And it's not just reacting, right? We can actually use these things to prevent attacks before they even happen.
Oh, really? That sounds almost too good to be true. How do you even do that? Like, are we talking about a crystal ball here or something?
Think of it like a fire drill, but for your whole digital world. You're using the graph database to simulate attacks, right? See those weak spots before a real attacker finds them. Let's say you're rolling out a new app, right? Cloud-based. You can model that whole architecture, all its connections, and then run simulations. See how an attacker might try to exploit it.
So it's like a virtual stress test for your security, basically. You're poking and prodding your own defenses.
Exactly. And this is where AI comes in to take this to another level.
Okay, so where does the AI fit into all of this?
Well, think about it. AI can analyze all that data in the graph, right? Looking for patterns, anomalies, stuff that human analysts might miss.
Makes sense.
Helps you identify emerging threats, predict what tactics those attackers are going to use, even automate some of that response stuff.
So it's like having a digital security guard that's constantly learning, getting smarter, more effective over time.
That's a great way to put it. And that combo, right? Graph databases and AI. Super powerful stuff. It's not just about data, it's about turning that data into insights you can actually use to, build a more resilient setup.
But I got to ask, right? All this sounds very high level. Can you give me like a real world example? How is this actually being used out there?
Oh, absolutely. One area where it's making a huge difference, financial services. Think about all the sensitive data banks hold,
Yeah,
right?
you don't want to mess with people's money. So how are they using this stuff to protect themselves?
Fraud detection, big time. Say someone tries to open a fake account, make a fraudulent transaction. Graph database can instantly analyze all those data points, the IP address, their history, device info, compares it to known patterns, and boom, red flag.
So it's like having a super-powered fraud detection system, basically.
Exactly. And it's not just single transactions, right? You can track larger patterns, identify those organized crime rings, maybe even state-sponsored attacks.
Whoa. It's like graph databases are giving banks a fighting chance in this whole cybercrime landscape.
And it's not just finance. Healthcare, government, retail, anywhere there's sensitive data, you're going to see graph databases being used.
It's really making me think, all right, it's not just about companies protecting themselves.
Yeah.
It's about building a safer digital world for everyone.
Get it. And that's why it's so important to understand this stuff, right? The impact it's having. Because it's changing the game completely.
It really is. Now, we've talked a lot about Microsoft and their platform,
Yeah.
MSEM, but they're not the only ones doing this, right?
Oh, no, not at all. There's a whole bunch of companies out there using this tech to build some really cool security solutions.
So tell me, who else should we be paying attention to? What are they bringing to the table?
One company that stands out, CrowdStrike, they're all about endpoint security. So basically protecting individual devices like laptops, phones, that kind of thing.
Right, which is super important these days with everyone working remotely, using their own devices for work stuff.
Exactly. And their approach is really interesting. They've got this platform called CrowdStrike Threat Graph, which uses, you guessed it, a graph database. And they can track attacker movements super precisely.
Oh, wow. So it's like having a really detailed map of your whole network, showing you exactly how an attack is happening.
You got it. And they're using all that detailed data to do things like, advanced log management and analysis. It's like having a digital detective on your side, sifting through all that evidence.
Okay, so if Microsoft's kind of focused on the big picture with MSEM, CrowdStrike is zooming in on the details.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it shows how versatile this tech is, right? You can use it at all these different levels to solve different security problems.
So we got Microsoft, CrowdStrike. Who else is in this graph database arms race?
Another big one, Cisco, with their XDR platform. They're coming at it from a network perspective, focusing on integrating security across the entire network, not just individual devices.
So less about securing each device and more about understanding how an attack might move through the whole system.
Exactly. Mapping out all those connections, those dependencies, finding those vulnerabilities before an attacker does.
So it's like instead of a security camera for just one room, they've got the whole building covered.
Perfect analogy. And Cisco, right. They know networking inside and out. Plus, they've got all these security products already, so they're in a really good position to leverage this graph database tech.
This is fascinating. It's amazing to see all these different companies using this tech in such creative ways. It's really driving innovation in the whole cybersecurity space.
And it's not just about the tech, remember. It's about changing how we think about security, moving away from that old siloed approach and thinking more holistically, more data-driven.
Right. It's not just an IT issue anymore. It's a business issue, a societal issue. It's about protecting our data, our privacy, our whole way of life, really.
Well said. And that brings us to another really cool thing about graph databases. They're awesome for knowledge discovery.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do you mean by knowledge discovery?
Think of it like this. By analyzing all the data in these graphs, security researchers can uncover hidden patterns, get insights that you just couldn't see before.
So it's like using a magnifying glass to see the tiniest details of the threat landscape.
Exactly. For example, right? You could analyze the relationships between different malware samples, find those commonalities, those patterns, and then boom, you can build better defenses.
So instead of treating each malware attack as a separate thing, you can see how they're all connected, like a bigger picture.
Precisely. And that knowledge can improve everything, right? Threat intelligence, vulnerability research, even incident response.
It's not just about reacting anymore. It's about understanding the whole threat landscape at a much deeper level.
And using that knowledge to build long-term security strategies.
This is blowing my mind. It feels like we're finally starting to unlock the secrets of the digital world.
And we're just getting started. I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with this tech.
Okay, I'm convinced. Graph databases, definitely the future of cybersecurity.
Yeah.
But gotta ask, right? There's got to be some challenges, some downsides to this whole thing. It can't be all perfect.
Of course, no technology is perfect. One of the big ones is complexity. As the amount of data grows, those graphs can get really tough to manage and analyze.
Yeah, it's like trying to navigate a city with a map that keeps getting bigger and more detailed. At some point, you're just lost.
Exactly. So data governance, data quality, super important here. Got to make sure you're collecting the right stuff, organizing it right, and keeping it accurate.
Makes sense. Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
What other challenges are there?
The skills gap is a big one. This tech is still pretty new. Not enough people out there who really know how to use it properly.
So it's like having a fancy new tool, but nobody knows how to use it.
Yep, and that's something we got to fix, right? Invest in education, training programs, get more people up to speed.
It's not just about the technology, it's about the people using it.
You got it. And that's why collaboration is so important. We need everyone working together, industry, academia, government, sharing knowledge, developing best practices.
This is great. It's like building a whole community of experts working together to solve these problems.
And it's not just the experts, right? We need to educate the public, too. Make sure everyone understands the importance of cybersecurity so they can protect themselves.
Right? Everyone has a role to play. So for anyone listening who's interested in getting into cybersecurity, what advice would you give them? What skills should they be learning?
Well, first, got to have a good foundation in cybersecurity principles, right? Networking, operating systems, security protocols, all that good stuff.
Makes sense. What else?
Data analysis skills are becoming more and more important these days. You got to be able to work with massive data sets, find those patterns, and figure out what it all means. And of course, knowing about graph databases is a huge plus.
So those online courses, certifications, those are good places to start.
Absolutely. But it's not just about formal education, right? Stay curious, explore new technologies, and connect with other people in the field. Because this landscape is constantly changing, so you got to keep learning.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've gone from the basics of graph databases to the front lines of this cyber arms race.
Yeah.
It's really clear that this tech is changing everything about how we protect ourselves in this digital world.
Absolutely. And it's not just about strengthening defenses, right? It's about giving those security pros the tools they need to do their jobs even better.
As we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. We've talked a lot about the power of tech, but at the end of the day, security is about more than just tools, right? It's about people, it's about being aware and making smart choices online.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We all have a responsibility to build a more secure world. And the more we understand about the threats and the tools, the better prepared we'll be.
So stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe out there.